What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Guest Shaming, the series where I go undercover on my secret alt TNT Guest Shamer. Each week I'll go through my activity logs, find some games that I think can give advice on, and give my notes on how people can improve. This week we got even more rounds than any previous weeks, so there's a lot to get through. So let's jump right into it. We're starting with a game by MrRich. First location is in New York, and he's sending Quebec. On this location, the first tip I would like to give is this license plate. Yellow license plates in North America are found in New York, New Jersey, New Mexico, and Alaska. You'll never see them in Canada. They're very good hint for New York. They're quite common there. Yeah, and within the Northeast region, it's very helpful for telling where you are. Also, we see in this house they've got a bit of a rock wall separating the house and the road. That one as well. That's very common in the northeast of the US, like New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island type region. And it's very rare in Canada. So yeah, I'd say those are my two big tips for this location. Moving on to round two. This one is in Finland. Moving on to round two, this one is Finland, and he sends Northern Norway. I'd say mainly here is the climate difference. Got a lot of dense pines and birches, but say the pines are more indicative of the climate. Finland has lots of birches, but pines are more southern, and here you see is extremely northern. And just to show an example, in this part of Norway, yeah, you see a lot of very short birches, and no pines at all, and yeah, less dense vegetation and shorter trees, which are indicating more north. Round three. This one is in Chile. He sends Mexico, and for this one, I'd say number one is the poles. So these poles are all ladder poles with one rung. This is a good example. So there's one big indent, and that is a Chile pole. You'll never find that in Mexico. Plenty of poles like that in this location. Mexico don't use any ladder poles at all. As well, you can use your compass and look at the sun. The sun here is clearly in the north, which would indicate you're in the southern hemisphere. Always good tip when you're confused. And also this wooden architecture, very Chilean, particularly more south in Chile. And lastly, license plates. In Mexico, they use short square plates like the US, but here we see more long rectangular plates, like more like Europe, which is indicative of Chile, Uruguay, Brazil, or Ecuador. Moving on to round four, we are in Rwanda, and he sends Uganda. So number one, here's this comment. This Ute with the big red backlight is exclusive to Rwanda. In Uganda, you see a car with only the white mirrors showing on the sides, and also Rwanda is exclusively Gen 4, and Uganda is exclusively Gen 3 with the camera quality. So this camera quality you'd never see in Uganda. And the fact this is a rural highway also more indicative of Rwanda, because Uganda only downtown Kampala outside of a few random trekkers. Also, another beginner tip, Rwanda drives on the right and Uganda and Kenya both drive on the left. So if you're ever confused, always check driving side. You can see the cars driving on the right side of the road. Moving on to round five. This one is in Eswatini, and he sends Australia. His opponent sends Botswana. So we covered Eswatini last week. So this white Google card, it's found in only South America, the south of Africa, so these countries, and Asia. So you'll never see it in North America, Europe, or Oceania. So yeah, it'll never be in Australia. And this very long, tall grass, yellow looking grass, very, very common all over Eswatini. You can see it here. Also, pine forests are very, very, very common in the west of Eswatini. This region is covered in pine forests. And yeah, when you see lots of pine forests like this in South Africa, you're going to be near Eswatini. This type of pole, I would say, with like horizontal bars as well, and these little insulators like span on top of it that look like birds. That's like a South African style pole that you see in Eswatini sometimes as well, that you never see in Australia. Okay, moving on to round six. This one is in Turkey. So I believe we're moving on to catJAM games. And catJAM was playing 10-second NPZ. I'm going to give some fast-paced advice because obviously not too much you can analyze in 10 seconds NPZ. So this first one here is in Turkey. catJAM sent Latvia, I believe. This is a wood pole with hooks on alternating, which is associated the most with Latvia, but you can also see it in all the Balkan countries in Turkey. So you can see it in Serbia, North Macedonia, Croatia, Montenegro, and Turkey. So yeah, don't think of it as some exclusive meta. And the architecture here, these tile roofs, very Southeast European, and this huge ridge in the back of the location. You never see any mountain that big in Latvia. This stone wall also indicative of more Mediterranean. So Turkey makes sense for that one. Moving on to round 7. This one is in Norway. He sends Bulgaria. You can see here on the right there's a little long dash, which would indicate Norway. Not that easy to make out. But I'd say mainly here is the very cold climate. These very short burst trees, indicative of a cold northern Scandinavian climate, and yeah, the snow way on top of mountains. But yeah, you'd never see birches anywhere south as Bulgaria. That's the main thing, the burst trees and the northern climate. Moving on to round 8. This one is in Galicia, and he sends Russia. So we had a similar location to this in the last video. This black card long antenna, common in Russia, but also can be found in Spain, France, and Italy. Most common in Spain and Italy. And in Spain, it's most common in the northwest in Galicia, in this region that's very dense with pine forests, and they also do a lot of fields, like even on the mountains, which is kind of unique. You wouldn't really see that in Italy. So yeah, and you see these orange roofs in the back, indicative of more Mediterranean. So the climate is just completely off in Russia. Moving on to the next game, also 10 seconds in NPZ. So he sends Rwanda on Kenya. This Guruka with this new silver back is exclusive to Kenya. There's a lot of similar looking cars that are white that are in Kenya and Senegal and UAE, but this silver version is exclusive to Kenya. It's a new Guruka that's just dropped. Also, NPZ, you can see here a Kenyan pole. So they use these poles with a wood base, these connecting bars, and then there's slightly off-center insulators. So you see the middle insulators a bit to the left instead of directly in the middle. So that's a Kenyan pole top. They always have connecting bars. They're kind of similar to Indonesia pole tops, but yeah, they're very helpful for confirming Kenya. Round 10. This one is in Bangladesh. So I believe he didn't get his guess in within 10 seconds, but I think Bangladesh is very gettable. So you see open rice fields and a road that's raised above the rice fields. That's extremely Bengali. A lot of other countries, they'll be at like the same height as the rice fields, if that makes sense. Also, this type of palm is very common in Western Bangladesh. Yeah. Okay, moving on to round 11. This one is in Spain. He sends Italy, so he misses Galicia again. So in this one, we have this pole top, which is associated the most with France and Spain. They're quite similar, but when it looks like this, with these things drooping down, you can know it's Spain. But yeah, that's Spain, France pole top. I'll show a French one on the screen now. Also, this very dry climate you wouldn't really see in Italy. It's like dry highlands with pine spam. Nowhere in Italy really makes sense for this. Can like kind of show an example of an Italy highlands type climate. It's just so much more lush, basically wherever you go, when you get in the mountains. So yeah, that's my advice for this one. Okay, moving on to round 12. He sends Sumatra on Sabah. So I think he was having a good game and then he messed up on the last round. So on this one we have most importantly white middle lines. Double white middle lines is exclusive to Malaysia. Here we have white dashes because we're at an intersection and you can overtake, I guess. But there's also other reasons this is Sabah. So like we're on the main highway. and we're going through oil palm plantations that's very Sabah. We have these poles, we have these round concrete poles with like A-frames that's much more Malaysian than it is Indonesian. Also these white stickers, these square white stickers are Sabah stickers. So yeah, plenty of metas that you could spot here. It's the general climate. With so many oil palms and rolling hills, makes more sense for Sabah. Okay, that's the end of catJAM's games. We move on to Asura. The first look we're looking at is in Norway. Yeah, so he sends Sweden on Norway. In this one, number one thing is the speed limit. In Sweden and Finland, the speed limits will always be yellow. Here, the sign is a white background on the speed limit, which means it's Norway. Also, these signs that say Sone are exclusive to Norway. And yeah, it'll always be yellow in Sweden and Finland. Most important. And I'd say generally with roads with unpaved road lines, in Sweden they're generally skinnier, and in Norway they're often wider, even with a footpath. So this road quality has a Norwegian vibe to it. Well, it's this architecture making sense for like a South Norway near Oslo. It's kind of like German looking architecture. Next round is in North Sumatra. So he sends Riau and North Sumatra. I'd say most important here is the pole tops. This is a North Sumatra pole top. This pole top's about 90% North Sumatra, 5% Riau, 5% West Sumatra. So there are exceptions. But with this climb, I think it would never be one of those exceptions because like pine trees are extremely common in the North Sumatra highlands and pretty rare elsewhere in Indonesia. Only found occasionally on Java or Central Sulawesi. But most common North Sumatra pine trees in Indonesia. You see plenty here. And yeah, you can see like big mountains in the distance, and like we're clearly like at high altitude, high up in the mountains, and like where you clicked in Riau, a bit more of a flat region, would have to be somewhere in the west. And yeah, they do fields up high in the mountains in North Sumatra. It's a very North Sumatran thing. See a little bit in West Sumatra, but very North Sumatran in general. Also, yeah, even this pole top with missing insulators, and only that one is North Sumatran. So yeah, it's just got a wider bar, and it often has weird insulator combos. Moving on to round 15. Yeah, so he sends Rondonia on Bahia. Most important thing here is just the super dry climate. You can just see like these very dry climate trees. These very dead vegetation. Super yellow soil. And also the hilliness. So Bahia is obviously a lot hillier than Rondonia usually. And in Rondonia, like I grab an example, like they're a lot more open, their space is a lot less populated. And yeah, they won't really build towns like on hills like they would in Bahia, just because it's more of a flat region on average. So when they have hills, they won't like build their towns there, whereas in Bahia, everywhere's hilly, so they're used to building their towns on hills, and yeah, their houses are more packed together because it's a more populated area. Also, yeah, in this location, we have lots of planted palms. Yeah, all over Brazil, you get planted palms that aren't indicative of the climate. Like the wild vegetation here clearly doesn't have any palms. It's just they're planted in the yards of these houses. And this type of palms they don't really indicate anything. Just a bit baby there. Move on to Estonia. So he sends Russia on Estonia. Okay, so easiest tip for this one is the bollards. So you see the circular bollard with a black strip and two circles on it. The fact that it's circular means it's Estonia. If it was flat, it would be Latvia. But yeah, this is an Estonian bollard. You see them more down the road. Russia doesn't have bollards like this. So yeah, this bollard design is exclusive to Estonia. You get similar ones in Finland, but yeah, that's an Estonian bollard. Also, I'd say the general landscape, the rolling hills, the dense forests, the very green summer coverage, the white flowers, these flower fields, very Estonian and Baltic looking. And this black car is, I'd say, most common in Estonia. you see it like in East Russian cities. It's a East Russia city meta. In West Russia, this is extremely rare. But in Baltics, is most common in Estonia. You can also see it a little bit in Lithuania and I think Poland, and elsewhere in Europe, with the black card visible. But it's most common in Estonia, in Gen 3, not Gen 4. So Gen 4 black card is different, but Gen 3 black card is an Estonia thing. Okay, moving on to round 17. This one is in Romania. We're on a new game now. So he's sending Italy or hedging Italy on this Romania. Best meta here, I'd say, is these white paint on the bottom of the trees. This is most common in Romania and Ukraine. You can also see it in South Russia. But yeah, very rarely in surrounding countries. But yeah, most common in Romania and Ukraine. They do it a lot in Romania. Also, these these orange tiles, very Balkan looking architecture, indicative of Romania, this type of region. And this white town entry sign, you'll find in white signs in Czechia, Slovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria. Also, with the black back, that is a clue for Romania. So I think that's why he ended up going Italy with a black back. But yeah, it's common in Italy and Romania, also Albania, Germany, Belgium sometimes. But yeah, black back's very common in Romania. So definitely makes sense for that here. And the town name I think is Tiu, which very Romanian looking language. And I believe the T would have a little dot underneath it, which is a Romanian letter. But yeah, this IU ending is very Romanian. Right, round 18. This one's in Turkey. So he's sending max southeast on max northwest. He's sending Batman. So this location is near Bursa in the northwest. I'd say most important here is the very green, lush climate. You can see lots of trees, lots of green grass, more cold climate in the landscape. Whereas Batman is definitely out in the desert. The more east you get, the more dry it gets on average. Also, like tiled roofs here, tiled roofs are more west. The rest of the architecture you can't really make out. And I'd say the taller the building, the less I trust the roof. And yeah, you can see a little bit of tiled roofs here, but the architecture is hard to make out. But yeah, here's an example of a Batman location. You can see how much more dry it is. Mountains and no trees, very dry shrubs here, and all the roofs will be sheet metal. So the more east you get, the more sheet metal roofs you get, and more white stone houses. So yeah, this climate definitely more northwestern. And another particular meta here is this green street sign is a Bursa street sign. So you'll see this around Bursa sometimes. Turkey street signs kind of an underrated meta. Moving on to round 19. This one looks like it's in Australia, and I believe we're moving on to Luke's games. Okay, so Luke is sending near Mackay in northern Queensland on North New South Wales. It's a pretty fair enough mistake. I can understand you heading Queensland here. It's very lush and dense with trees. But I would say there's nothing here that really indicates it's being tropical. It's just I don't know, more of a central East Coast climate with the trees. If you're that north like Mackay, you get like wild sugarcane. You get a lot of these like whiter types of eucalyptus that are more northern to me. And like you get a lot less random paved roads. So like more rural roads, the more north you get would be more dirt. Whereas more south in New South Wales, they do a lot of paved roads with no road lines. Also here we have long reflectors. In Queensland you see mostly short reflectors, but in New South Wales you get only north, only long. So yeah, that's my advice for that one. Moving on to round 20. This one is in Russia, and I believe he sends Northwest Territories in Canada. So it's a very interesting mistake. So you got these very like skinny, dead northern looking trees, super northern climate, northern looking flowers and vegetation, a dirt road, and a red back to the car. So looking at the road that he sent, we see lots of dead, skinny looking trees, a wide dirt road, and a red back to the car. But the thing is, these trees are what they call white spruces. These are spruce trees. They're very Canadian looking. And yeah, it's a different type of tree than what you'd see in Russia. On this location, and yeah, in Canada you'd always see the blue car. And not in Northwest Territories in the Gen 4. You always see like a big back to the car, which would indicate you're not in Russia. Russia always has no car or just the red back, and here you see just the red back and nothing on the other side. But yeah, the vegetation here, it's all birches or like larches, which is very Russian, and like this northern grass is a bit more Russian. But yeah, this type of tree definitely more Russian looking, and the birches more Russian. The soil is a bit different as well. You look at it, but yeah, definitely an interesting mistake there. Looks like we have West Australia where he sends Portugal. So on climate, that makes sense. Here's the location. You can see we have these very big eucalyptus trees. I'd say number one thing here is in Portugal the eucalyptus trees don't look like this. These are very thick, like very tall, huge trees. Definitely a lot more Australian. In Portugal they're a bit skinnier and shorter. I think I got an example. So here's how the eucalyptus trees look in Portugal. They're very spammy, very skinny. And yeah, just small in general. You can see sometimes bigger ones like this, but they don't look the same. And yeah, this we have slightly reddish soil, which would indicate Western Australia. If you figure out this is Australia, definitely climate-wise, it feels a bit off for an average Australian. Also, with the car meta here, we see the entire blue back. So in Europe, you'll only see a tiny stretch of blue. So yeah, this is an example. See only a tiny bit of it peaks. Most of the time there's some weird car glitches you get sometimes, but like yeah, you'll always see almost always just a tiny bit of blue on the back in Europe. Whereas in the rest of the world, excluding South Africa, in Asia, the Americas, and Australia and New Zealand, you'll see the entire back being blue, like a wide blur, if that makes sense. Okay, moving on to round 22. This one is in New Brunswick, and he sends Russia. So first step here is Gen 3 with no car is never in Russia. It's only in a few countries in Europe, like Ukraine, Serbia, North Macedonia, Turkey, Italy, Spain, most common. Yeah, it's normally associated with Serbia and North Macedonia, but yeah, a lot of Europe is basically always antenna. So yeah, lack of antenna, more North American for sure. Also, I would say this road quality is more North American. So in Europe, when they have no road lines, it's almost always way skinnier than this. This is way too wide for a rural European road, I'd say on average. It's be quite rare to find a road this wide with no road lines or anything. And especially this rural. I'd say the shrubbery here, the ferns near this road are very Eastern Canada looking. Not sure how to describe it. Just yeah, the style of ferns is very New Brunswick, Eastern Canada style. And yeah, the road quality makes sense for rural New Brunswick. Okay, moving on to round 23. This one is in Georgia, and he sends more north in Pennsylvania. So I'd say here the red soil. So red soil in the US I associate with the South, like the entire South. So very common in Oklahoma, and it stretches all the way east towards Georgia, and a little bit in Florida. But yeah, common in Georgia, Alabama, and yeah, the entire South. But yeah, very, very rare more north than that. Like Pennsylvania, you'll never see it, this red soil. I know it's not that obviously red, but this is red enough that I'll know it's south. And the types of pines here are southern pines, and yeah, they're everywhere. This is southern pine forest. Pretty average Alabama, Georgia dirt road. With this southern pine spam. Okay, I think we're moving on to TreezErik. Final 3 rounds. So first one is in Alberta. He sends New Orleans, Louisiana. So he was playing 10 seconds at NPZ. So we see missing fronts and this architecture, this very wide road, very open road, but then kind of dense housing. So this is kind of like prairie city architecture where they have super wide roads and kind of dense double-story houses and very copy-pasted modern style houses, very new suburbs. And yeah, they're missing fronts in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Manitoba has fronts, but then the entire north of the US, they will have fronts. So it's either southern US or here prairies in Canada, and he's sent in the south where, yeah, and you see these tall poplars, like the climate doesn't make sense for southern US, and yeah, the architecture looks very prairies. Yeah, it's very green. And we're finishing with two South African mistakes. So first one is here in West Cape, near Cape Town. So it's kind of a baity any particular location, but you can make out a West Cape pole. So this pole, even from this distance, with a little triangle connected on it, I'll zoom in closer. This triangle is a West Cape pole, and yeah, with this weird triangle shape and that big triangle, that means you're in the West Cape, which is a state around Cape Town. And this rolling hills climate is common around Cape Town and kind of baits for Pretoria. And it's always good to be scared of that NMPZ. And yeah, not be insisting things like this with a pole. And the other one, this one, we have a bit more of a generic pole that I associate with kind of the entire country, to be honest, just the more western desert climates, but you can see it also near Pretoria. But this climate, I think, is way too dry for where he sent, which was around here near Pretoria. He sent near Pretoria in both locations, and here you see a lot more taller trees and like a lot of longer grass. And yeah, but yeah, trees are still growing, whereas here it's way out in the desert. And like, yeah, it's only very, very low shrubs and red soil and very low shrubs. And generally, with this flatness, yeah, it's even more west. Like you get kind of more hills, a bit more north and a bit more east, but when it's super flat, I like very west. Like, and this road makes sense. But yeah, like, a bit of a valley here, in South Africa. And yeah, that concludes the video. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in personalized private coaching, please check out my my website on GitHub in the description below. And yeah, thanks for watching.